All right. Is everyone able to see my screen? Good there? Cool. So it's awesome. Thank you guys for joining today. Saw you fill out some questions around generative AI. So hopefully, the stuff we covered today will help, kind of give you some use cases, help you understand from a security best practices perspective, how to really start leveraging generative AI within your organization, right? And through your automations. So today we'll cover a little bit about AI-powered automations, where UiPath is using AI within its entire business automation platform, as well as how we're bringing in generative AI. We'll also cover 3 patterns and use cases for generative AI powered automations, and then finally end with a few demos to actually show you, how you can use these in kind of some real world examples. So, first to kind of level set, right? UiPath is using generative AI and AI machine learning technologies across kind of these 3 areas, right? First, to really help you build automations faster, right? So you'll continue to see, we've released some enhancements from a product perspective to help with supercharging your development experience, making it easier to not only build automations, but use generative AI technology and some of the latest and greatest AI machine learning models within your automations, and really adding, right, these generative AI capabilities to the products to expand their capabilities and features. Now, the focus for today is going to be a bit more on the number 3 side. So we're going to really dive into what can you do today, right, with generative AI, with some of the connectors and integrations that we have to build some powerful automations that really help you solve these end-to-end use cases in a seamless manner. Now, when we talk about the platform and where AI is really used, the slide really helps you kind of picture where it's used within the platform. So first, we have AI-powered automation within our solutions, right? So document understanding, AI Center, communications mining, process mining, task mining, a ton of AI machine learning that you can take advantage of, some leveraging those GPT, LLM capabilities, others leveraging other types of machine learning models, but they are within the products and features that you're using today that are within the platform. Now, what we've added, and because generative AI has gotten a lot of attention, we've added direct support for those generative AI models. So you'll see as we go through some of the examples, some of the use cases that we're using our integration service, we're using our connectors to seamlessly bring in the calls to these foundational models to start leveraging their capabilities and their intelligence. Now, we also, within the platform, and you may be familiar with this, especially if you are using document understanding, we have specialized AI, right? We have those document understanding models, we have computer vision, and all of this you can take advantage of in conjunction with generative AI to really make a powerful end-to-end automation. So it's really about bringing the 2 capabilities together, generative AI, as well as these specialized AI models within your automations to really achieve an end-to-end solution. And so you'll see in some of the demos as well, that we're going to be combining these capabilities, right? Combining things like document understanding or communications mining with generative AI to really empower it and give it a bit more flexibility in handling some of those complex use cases. Now, one of the big things, and I even saw it in the surveys as well, is security, right? We're open, we're flexible as a platform, but responsible is kind of the big next step too. We've always had security, governance, auditability, fine-tuning controls at the enterprise grade level within the platform. And that's only going to continue to expand with generative AI, right? So we have kind of this layer where you can have human in the loop, you have auditability, the ability to do fine-tuning, to add guardrails to how these generative AI models are being brought into your automations and into your organization. So you can really have full transparency, right? Who's doing what, how are they using generative AI models, and how are those generative AI models providing information back? And we're only going to continue to expand in this area to make it much easier and safer for people to use generative AI. And we talk about the use cases, right? It's more than just calling that generative AI model, right? When we're diving into specifically using use cases, right? First, it's going to be context gathering, right? You can ask generic questions to generative AI. It also has kind of a limit in terms of some of the data it's been trained on. So how do you get it that next level of detail, and how do you really fine tune it to the information in your organization? And so that's really where UiPath can come in and help provide some of that context, which you'll see in some of those use cases. And as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be that combination of combining specialized models with generative AI to really complete and complement that end-to-end solution. Generative AI, again, is just a brain, right? Today when you're going to interact with it, you have to go to a chat interface, type your questions, and you'll get some response back, right? So it really is just that brain, but automation takes it to that next level and can actually become the muscle, right? That does the work. So based on the input, UiPath can help gather that context, gather that input, and then the output from generative AI, UiPath can go ahead and actually act on it, right? Do that next step and take it to the next level. There's seamless human in the loop. Right? You probably have heard of all these cases where generative AI has these hallucinations, right? And so really having human in the loop is going to be key, especially as generative AI continues to change and evolve over time. And we have a seamless way to do that through forms, attended automations, Action Center, and much more. And then finally, confidence and governance, right? We have the audit logs, we have the enterprise-grade security, and controls. And so when you're using generative AI within UiPath, you have that visibility and you can have that confidence that you're bringing it in a governed, managed, secure way. So I mentioned earlier patterns, right, for generative AI. What I want to kind of do is when we looked at generative AI and how you can bring it into your automations, we wanted to make it a little bit more digestible, right? So we really broke it down into these 3 pattern areas. Now, you may use generative AI in your automations in one or multiple patterns. So it might just be one use case that follows one pattern, might follow a combination of these patterns. But this is kind of the lowest level you can think of if you're trying to think of use cases and solutions. And we have some examples for each on the subsequent slides that I'll go through. But the first is reader-writer, right? You'll have some source information, some content that you'll want to have given to that generative AI model, and it's going to do some sort of summarization, right? Or some sort of content generation. So it'll take a lot of text, turn it into a little bit of text, or it'll take a little bit of text and turn it into a lot more text, right? And then ultimately, the automations can not only gather that context to provide to the LLM, but also do some of that distribution, right, as a follow-on. You have the Analyst Doer pattern, right? This is where you're going to be analyzing information, again, from multiple sources, source systems, your data, but then outputting data or outputting that next best action. And UiPath can then take that data, that output from the LLM, or act on that next best action, depending on what it is, right? Using LLM as a kind of analysis brain to choose what should be done next, and UiPath going and actually executing on it. And then finally, pattern 3, an assistant, right? This is going to be closer to that GPT type, ChatGPT type interface, or Bard, where you're chatting with it and having the LLM give you some information, give you some knowledge, and give you a response. And we can even take that to the next level and actually have an action done on behalf of that, right? And so we dive a little bit deeper in. Here are some example use cases. Again, with the reader-writer path, you can always have that human in the loop capability as well for that human validation, right, to help with any hallucinations or any adjustments, but it really helps you generate that content, those summaries that much quicker. Just some examples down here, right? You could think of email summarizations, proposal writing, compliance, ESG reporting, summarization. So these are just a few. Hopefully it kind of gets you thinking in this direction in terms of how you can start to leverage generative AI. We have some as well for the Analyst Doer, right? So things like analyzing competition, right? Doing pricing analysis, doing kind of vendor selection, right? Based on certain criteria, doing report creation based on data from multiple sources, right? Structuring and normalizing data. And you'll see in one of the demos a way that we kind of do some of that structuring and normalizing. And one demo that we'll show later that you also will get a template for, a downloadable template, is going to be the two-way match demo, right? Where you can intake an invoice, match with a PO, and do some downstream activities. And finally, pattern 3, the assistant. I think we're pretty familiar in this way, and Russell will even go into this a step further in his demos. So with that, Russell, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Drew, for that awesome overview. And Yeah, let me walk you through next on one of the two patterns first, and let me start by sharing my screen. Here. Hope you can see my screen now. Great. So let's start first with pattern one, and of course, this also includes pattern three because we'll talk about LLM powered assistants, right? We already know how generative AI or large language models can help you be more productive by, let's say, responding to your emails or extracting entities from unstructured sources, right? But one of the most common and popular use case nowadays is question answering, and not just general Q&A, but based on your own data, right? Because in reality, the main challenge with GPT or other large language models for that matter is they're built to be general purpose, right? Because large language models doesn't really know the underlying context that the language or question describes, because the technology mainly aims to generate text that, let's say, sounds nice or both grammatically and semantically, but they don't really have some kind of objectivity, right, or context aside from just satisfying statistical consistency with the prompt, right? Although it looks like that it thinks, most likely it's not, because the generative aspect of GPT is that it predicts future tokens based on the past ones, right? So essentially, without the proper integrations, right, or framework, large language models can, as Drew mentioned, can perpetuate hallucinations or amplify biases and hence misinformation, right? So as soon as you need to access, say, real-time information or may ask niche questions like based on your own domain expertise, right? It won't be able to provide you proper answer, or worst case, it will provide answer, but will make that answer up, right? So let's say, if I ask this question, right, especially in a free version of the ChatGPT, who will be the speakers for this event, right? Although in the ChatGPT Plus or Bing, it can already scrape data out of links. But if you, like me, if you're just using the free version of ChatGPT, doesn't it won't be able to scrape, right? And real-time data it doesn't have access to, so it won't be able to answer the question, right? Specific details. And another example is this one. What's the difference between LLM chain and conversation chain? If you're not really familiar about this topic, you would think that this is correct, right? LLM chain and conversation chain are both classes provided by OpenAI, although it's not, right? The thing is, how can you extend this generative capabilities without even having access to the paid version of this GPT models or the vessels like ChatGPT Plus, right? You would be able to do this by, of course, by using integrations that are already available within UiPath, right? So same question asked with this UiPath version that will be showing you later, integrating with the the the, the available integrations or APIs within UiPath, you will be able to have more appropriate response, right? At the back end, it was able to scrape. Hold on. At the back end, it's able to scrape this link, right? And then able to use that as a context, right? And feed that into the prompt along with the prompt into the completion model, which is the chat completion, right? So going back to our next example right here, you can take it up a notch and be able to feed in a video, right? Or have you generated an image, right? Again, ChatGPT free version cannot create an image. And with this wide array of integrations that you can do with UiPath Studio by API, like Stable Diffusion, you can generate this image, although this is a very individualistic or personal use case, let's say. And I think most appropriately in real world, sometimes you don't want to watch an hour length of video. So you just want to feed the model with the link of the video and or you want it to summarize it, right? So with integrations with, let's say, a framework like LangChain, right? You would be able to paste in the video, and then it will be able to scrape the transcript using the document loader of LangChain, and it will be able to feed into the model and then summarize the transcript of the video, right? So if there's one common theme here, right, in these examples, that would be context, right? Then context is important for the model to generate the most objective or most relevant output. So that leads us to our next slide. How does this work, right? Because context comes in many forms. It can be from web pages, video transcripts, documents, but large language models can only inspect a few thousand words at a time. So as much as you want to, you cannot feed, let's say, a whole web page or whole documents into your LLM prompt, right? It can only accept a few tokens, and it can also be very expensive, right? If you have all the time, if you're feeding it lots of information in the prompt, right? So how does this work? So this works through what we call embeddings, right? And I will walk you through that a bit. So think of embeddings as a way to determine which pieces of text we'd like to include when passing to the model in order to answer a question, right? It's not like fine-tuning or training the model to learn all the information on new tasks, which is really cumbersome and time-consuming to do so, but it's merely providing just the most relevant information to the model based on your specific question, right? In order for it to generate the most reliable answers. That's why this approach works best for scenarios like Q&A, right? So, but what really is embeddings, right? So words such as beautiful, like pretty or awesome, they have meanings, right? And consequently have synonyms. And if you put words together to make up sentences, it will create a thought which may or may not represent a whole new meaning, right? So basically words have meanings, right? Embeddings are numerical representations of those meanings of words or a group of words or thoughts which can be converted into vectors and mapped in a graph, right? So if essentially you plot these numbers or embeddings into a graph, words that have close meanings, right, generate nearby vectors, right? And how does this help, right? This helps in providing context because this can then be used for semantic similarity. Let's say you have a question you ask to the model, and you have a web page or knowledge-based sources, right? You would be able to compare your question to the embeddings or vector database out of the vast knowledge base that you have, so that the model can pick out so that you can pick out what you need to inject into the model for the most reliable answer, right? So this is really what's happening at the core level. But if I can summarize this approach in a few steps, right? This is how you would use it in a real world Q&A scenario to make sure the model outputs the most reliable result, given any type of knowledge base or context form. And as we talk about data source or knowledge base, if there's one thing that RPA is best at, what would it be? So I'd say it would be gathering data from multiple sources it can be documents, it can be database, it can be web pages, video transcript, right? And being able to convert or create a vector database by converting these chunks of text within the transcripts into what we call embeddings, as I have shown you. So as soon as you ask your question, right, the question will also be converted into this numerical representations or embeddings. So then you can use semantic similarity to get the most relevant chunks from your vector database. And then these relevant pieces of information can then be injected into the prompt, like so. You have a, based on the prompt you built or engineered, right? And then this prime prompt will then be fed in as an input to your favorite large language model. It can be GPT, it can be Anthropic Cloud, it can be Vertex AI. So you have lots of large language models out there, not only the most popular GPT as of now, right? So this is also called context injection or zero-shot prompting or learning. The benefit of context injection is it primes the prompt with very specific information to use for the answer so that it will always use up-to-date answer, or you don't really have, it's not really retraining the model. It's not really training the entire model, which we doesn't have access to right now. If you have new information, you just do context injection essentially, right? So that leads us to this next part. So just show us. So let me, hope you can still see my screen right now. So for this first example, I asked a question, right? Provide key highlights on this UiPath forum post. So this is the forum post that I'm showing, right? The 2023.4 release. And then I gave the link, right? Based on the given forum post or key highlights, blah, 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 right? So at the back end, so it detects a URL, scrapes the data source, search embeddings, do context injection, generate completion, right? Similarly, summarize the content of this video about large language model. This is an 8-minute video right here. And then in a few seconds, it was able to load the transcript, right? Create embeddings, load into the vector database, do semantic similarity, and generate this beautiful summary for you, right? Now let's open Studio and show you my next demo. Now, I'll be running one of these LLM assistants in debug mode, and as you can see, there are a couple here. By the way, shout out to the UiPath product team who handles the new attended automation triggers. So if you're not familiar with it yet, I suggest you head to the past dev session to over topic. So, so I will run this same form to do image generation, right? And they'll run it in debug mode. So I will say, visualize a large language model in the form of human living in the modern world. And just to show you how this works, so it triggers, generate, so it first tries to generate the prompt to the stable diffusion model, which generate the image, right? I just provided this text, but the aim for the output for the large language model is to generate the actual prompt to the stable diffusion model. Right? So the prompt generated based on this will be imagine prompt embossing suite of modern metropolis, blah, blah, blah. So this is what will feed the stable diffusion model, right? And then that will be called via API, right? So not only image generation model, but also if you have transformer models in the Hugging Face pipeline to interpret image or other transformers, you can also call right now via raw API. So this is what it will generate, right? Yeah, so this is how it imagines it. So yeah, so that's again augmenting generative AI capabilities just by the wide array integrations of UiPath, and for this example is an image generation, right? Now, another example here, though, I have a couple one like for so this is related to the Git. So I have a forms here for cooks, for farmers. So although this generates a recipe based on an image, interpreting the image using like the image captioning model, and then feeds into the GPT to generate the recipe for that available ingredients that you have. What I want to show you is this taking the run this. So this is an image presentation generator. So just based on a text, right? So I will be able to generate a presentation, right? Let's say I will name my presentation Unleashing the power of generative AI. And simple. So this is my prompt template, and I just provide what the title of my presentation that I'd like to generate, and then let's say an optional overview. Then I can then hit generate presentation. Again, how this works is, of course, you have your prompt that you feed to the model, right? And what this model will do is create a markdown presentation file, and that markdown presentation file will then be converted into a PPT or PowerPoint. And the generative aspect there is being able to create this outline of your presentation and convert into a PowerPoint, right? So what it will generate is something like this. Once it finished, right? So with just the text that you provided, you will be able, it generates you a very good outline of what topics you could include in the title that you provided, right? And with the integration with image generation models like Stable Diffusion or other ones, then you'll be able to add images on the slides as well. So that's for the petition. This one, and the last one I want to show you is really on the one of the real world use case scenario where you, let's say you have a e-commerce website where you receive reviews and all that, and one good integration with LLM, large language models, being able to automatically respond to those feedback from the reviews on your products on your website. And just by doing this very simple integration, you could be able to achieve something like this when someone writes product feedback, right, on your website. It will first get the sentiment of that feedback, right? So that's sentiment analysis, right? And then assign a rating for that. And then it will automatically, as well, by calling the model, automatically provide the feedback in an automatic response based on the sentiment of the feedback, right? So this is a really good example of the power of a foundational model, like to perform multiple tasks like sentiment analysis, generating response based on that sentiment analysis, etc. This could have been different models otherwise, different pragmatic models, but in this case, in the advent of large language models, this foundation model really helps having just one um, um, generative AI. So yeah, that's all for my demo. Hope that gives you some idea, and I'll pass the floor to Drew.
Awesome. Thanks, Russell. All right. Let me share my screen again. Great. So those are some great examples of how you can start using generative AI in some of your automations. Russell kind of particularly covered pattern 1 and 3. So I'm going to cover a little bit of pattern 2. This two-way match invoice processing demo is also the template that you're going to get. This can at least help you get kickstarted and kind of your journey of testing out, hey, how can I use generative AI, use integration service, use some of the UiPath capabilities to really create this solution for yourself. So definitely download it afterwards. We'll provide a link. But just a quick walkthrough of kind of this two-way match invoice processing, which of course you can update to a three-way match, four-way match, however you need. Really how it works is, right, you're going to get that invoice coming in through various locations, could be folder, email, some other location. Robot will go out, grab that information. You'll use document understanding, right? So a specialized model to do the actual data extraction from the invoice. And then we call our first OpenAI or generative AI model, right? Could be a different generative AI model as well. I just, for this demo, used Azure's OpenAI. The first thing I do is do some data cleansing, do some of that semantic matching. So getting the columns in the right format to match, what I have in the SAP system. Once I have the extracted table from the invoice in that format, then I actually go into SAP, I look up the corresponding purchase order, right? You got that purchase order number from document understanding. So I'm able to extract the data from that. I combine both tables into a prompt that I then make a second call to generative AI to actually do the comparison, right? And decide for me, or help me decide, right? Does the invoice data match the PO data? If there's a match, obviously, you'll go straight through processing. But if there is an issue identified by generative AI, you can have it go directly to Action Center to have that human in the loop capability. So a couple of things to note before I show the demo. I found that by splitting up into these smaller kind of logic problems, splitting up the request to generative AI, I was able to get a little bit more consistent responses and answers. There was a little bit of prompt design in there as well, which I'll show you in Studio. And really this helped me, playing with the temperature, playing with some of the settings through the integration service activity, helped me kind of configure the generative AI model to really give me the results that I was looking for. Now, the last thing I'll mention too is this is really going to help you reduce your development complexity, right? Normally, if I didn't have these generative AI components, I would have to actually build out the logic or hard logic to actually do some of this data cleansing, do some of the matching and the checking of the data between the tables. And so all of that I was able to absolve away and really handle with natural language and one activity that I could drag in. So let me hit end here. So this is the workflow for that two-way match. It'll look very similar to the template that you download if you end up downloading it. You'll see a couple of things here. So the first is just a sample invoice that we need to go ahead and extract some information from to continue down the two-way match process. Within the prompts, I have this prompt section here. So when I'm designing, I like to have a folder, kind of keep my prompts in there that I'm going to use in. And if we look at the prompts, right, the first prompt, you can see that I have some instructions that I gave generative AI. Right. I also put in placeholders. So I have a placeholder for table 1, placeholder for the columns that I want it to adjust that data into. And then I even have an exact response that I want generative AI to give me the answers in. I basically asked it to give me the response in a JSON format so that I could go through and downstream in the automations, easily extract the table or even extract the explanation for, hey, why did it make the changes it did? Now, if we look at the second prompt where I combine the two tables together, right, the one that we get from SAP with the purchase order, and then the one that we've extracted with document understanding, I do the same thing, right? I provide it with instructions on what I want it to do. I then provide the two tables with placeholders so that in the automation, I can fill in that information. And then I provide it with instructions on, hey, here's the exact format I want you to respond back to me in. And one thing I'll mention too is by providing this format, you kind of help control what that output of the generative AI model is going to be, so that you can use it downstream, right? You get a little bit more consistency in terms of how it responds back. So with that, it's visible again. All right, so we'll go ahead and run through it. You'll see it'll do document understanding to do the extraction. At the same time, I'll be reading in those prompts. Then I'll go ahead and do those column updates with generative AI. At the same time, I'll go into SAP and using the purchase order number from the invoice, I'll go ahead and extract the purchase order table and then continue on downstream. And I'll also show us what it looks like to be in Action Center as well. So we'll hit run. Now, you'll also see that there may be the presentation of validation station, just so we can see some of the DU extraction that was done as well. So you can see the automation is beginning to run. And I'm using the execution trail, so if you're curious how these green checks are happening and the yellow checks, you can just check that off in the developer tools. So we can see here that we extracted the purchase order number as well as all the line item tables using document understanding. I even have this placeholder piece here so that when generative AI gives back a response when we ask it, we can capture that information and use it downstream. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. Everything looks good here. So now we're having generative AI go ahead and update those column headers. At the same time, while that's happening, we're going to go and have the robot go log into SAP, use that purchase order number to go ahead and actually extract the purchase order data that matches to that invoice. And now we've added that information to generative AI to give us a validation. So just for this demo, I put up a message box so we can take a look right away at what generative AI responded back with. And it did it pretty quickly, right? It says here, nope, there was no match in terms of the two tables. And the reason was the PO quantity in table 1 was 1,600 for the items, while in table 2, it was 160. And then the net price for table 1 was 4,053 when it should have been 453. So if we hit OK, right, we'll have this continue on. What I did was I had this just create something in Action Center for us so we can see what it would be like for a SME or whoever that document validation person is to go in and look at that. And so if we go into our Action Center, let me just filter the latest, right? We can see that we have a task created in here, and we're able to pass that response from generative AI back into our Action Center. So now, if I'm an SME who's reviewing this data, I can go ahead and see, okay, here's what generative AI found, here's what was extracted. And so I have kind of a more focused area on what I want to look at. Now, the other thing you can do as well is you can create custom Action Center tasks. So if I wanted to also bring up the purchase order data as well and show it side by side with the invoice, as well as have the generative AI explanation, I could do that as well here. So a good bit of flexibility in terms of how you can present the information and how you can have a business user go in and actually validate what generative AI was coming out with and what kind of things it found when you're doing this matching logic. So again, this is the template that you'll get, and feel free to go through it. If you have questions, of course, you can reach out. Now, I did want to show one other kind of real world use case that's a little bit different, right, in terms of how we use generative AI, but still using generative AI capabilities. So another demo that I created, and this is kind of a mix of that knowledge base type search, but kind of making it more hands-off, making it more fully autonomous with the automations, is pharmacovigilance, right? And if you're not familiar with that term, This is really just a process to capture adverse events. So in healthcare, when there's medications, when there's medical devices, those life science companies have to basically pay attention to any adverse events that are happening as a result of those medicines. There's some encodings that are done. So there's specific forms that get filled out that get passed in what we call our cases. Usually life science companies will take those cases, then they'll have to go in and do some coding, some universal coding on the symptoms, and then pass that information back to regulators. And so this process, right, can be very manual, right? You have to go in, read the symptoms, try to understand what those symptoms tie back to in terms of the measure codes, right, or the encodings. And so we can use generative AI to really automatically do it, or at least suggest, right, what those types of encodings could be. And so in this automation, you'll see I have a sub-process and a main process. The sub-process is really focusing on updating that database, right? So I know there were some questions about, hey, how do you handle large data sets, right? Or large text data. And as Russell mentioned earlier, embedding vectors are a really great way to do that. And so we have a sub-process here that's always checking the Medra list for new codes to update a local database with the embedding vectors, right? So we can pass large amounts of data to generative AI so that it can kind of figure out, what ties back to the text that it's looking at. Now, the main part of the automation, so while that's happening on a recurring basis, could be daily, monthly, weekly, however you need it, there is a main solution that runs that whenever a new case comes in, we use document understanding, communications mining to actually intake that data. Of course, you have Action Center for human in the loop, for seamless human in the loop to make any adjustments or updates. But then we can pass that document or that information that we extracted, the symptoms, to generative AI. Generative AI will use its embedding vector, right, that we've created, that database, to actually check the symptoms against the list of codes that might tie back to those symptoms, and then suggest an action center to the clinician what codes might be relevant to this types of symptoms that the person is experiencing. The robot then, right, once it gets validated, can collect all that information, properly put it into the right format for submitting electronically, or even just emailing out the data or adding it to a web portal. So another example of how you can leverage generative AI within an automation to really complete an end-to-end complex use case. So hopefully, everything you've seen here today gives you kind of some good understanding of where you can start, right, with automation, and you'll have a template. So again, we'll post this link in the chat for you to go ahead and download that two-way match invoice processing demo. We also have, if you enjoyed this dev dive session, we have some more coming up. So definitely save your seat, right? Some good topics on using automation and how you can really leverage the power of automation in your organization.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Dhruv. Thank you, Russell, for this insightful session. And it was really good to see so many questions coming in. So it's certainly a very hot topic and everyone is quite curious about the applications and the potential. So good to see the conversation. Please keep the questions coming in. We will still make sure that all your questions are being answered. While the questions are coming in, I would just like to take a moment to just, announce that our flagship global hackathon of UiPath community, HyperHack, is live. So anyone who is interested, or if you have any ideas around around using automation, not just through AI. So we have one category that is AI-powered automation solutions. So if you have any ideas or any use cases that you want to apply with, feel free to participate in that category. If the core business automation solutions interest you and that you feel that is your area of expertise, you have another category over there as well. And as you can see on screen, there are amazing awards per category for the winners. So please do share it with your colleagues, your friends, your teammates to see who would be interested, and make sure that you participate in this challenge. You can just scan the QR code. We will also share the link of this hackathon on the chat, so you can just go through it. Meanwhile, please keep the questions coming in. I see that the questions are still flowing. I will also open up the You will also be able to unmute yourself now and ask the question. So in case you're lazy to type, just unmute yourself and ask the questions quickly, and we will take them one by one. I see a lot of questions around recordings and presentations. Yes, the recordings will be shared with everyone. So you will get a post-event email from community@uipath.com. In that, you will see the recordings as well as the presentation embedded. If you are missing that somehow, go to the same link which you used to register for this session. The recording and the presentation will be uploaded there in next 24 hours. Yes, any questions? Please share the link to download the demo. Yes, I'll just find it. I thought. Perfect. I hope you're able to unmute. If not, if you're shy to speak up, chat is always an option. So that still exists.
Hi, Manoj this side. I do have a question.
Yes, Manoj.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for the great sessions from Drew and Alfred. And question from my side, I do see the value. I'm kind of new to ChatGPT and LLM integration with UiPath. Well, I do see the benefit in terms of design, improving the design time from the delivery perspective, as well as the enhancing the automation perspective. But in my opinion, I could be wrong. We are adding more complexity in this journey of an automation acceleration. So is that a fair statement?
So what I would say is that's fair, right? The models themselves are complex, right? So when you ask it something, it could give you different answers. There's a little bit of flexibility you have with the temperature gauge, but that's the best part of the platform is you have a way to build in hard logic if you wanted, right? Using the traditional methods, but you can also test out bringing in generative AI, right? And over time, as generative AI improves, it's easy to, plug in the new model or plug in the next model. Especially the pace that things are changing. So, we're still in early days, but we only see, at least I only see this stuff improving more and more.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have hi Satish here. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Satish.
Yep.
Hossein, you can go after Satish. I see your hand.
Okay.
Yes, Satish, please continue.
Okay. All right. So basically, my question around the, foundation models that, we are using for almost all of this Gen AIs. And if you talk about those foundation models, they are basically trained on unlabeled data and that they are pre-trained, right? And most of the time, if we use them directly, it will be end up returning, variations in the output that we are getting. So is UiPath also planning to train them on industry specific use cases or data set?
George, I don't know if you have more information on that from a product perspective. What I can say is we are working on ways to support customers doing fine tuning of the models to their data. Not just through the embedding capabilities, but there'll be more coming out from a platform perspective. You saw on that very first slide I showed with the AI framework or infrastructure layer, there'll be more added to that. So it's not just from an audit perspective, but also fine tuning, things like that. Generative AI models take a lot of data, right? So kind of customizing them may not always be the best option. A lot of times using the embedding capability, right? Adding more context to the prompt itself, and then kind of chunking or iterating through the different kind of text or data that you're looking at with the model tends to work well for giving it that context to generate off of.
Yeah, that's helpful to answer my question. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
If I can add something real quick as well, and Drew has covered most of it. So the difference between fine tuning and let's say Q&A using embeddings or semantic searches, fine tuning is great for having the model learn new tasks. So tasks can be generating code, generating lots of different patterns of text. But if you want to the model to answer new information, right? I don't think fine tuning is the best approach. The best approach again for having the model to answer new information would be semantic search or embedding. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Hossein, maybe you can ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So I have one question in 3 categories. So is UiPath have any plan to integrate generative AI in document understanding on design timing? When you design, means you upload the samples and you go to the labeling. It's the capability of auto labeling, means understand the document and say, okay, what is important here, using the generative AI and make all the labels. And then with the instruction that you make, for example, say, okay, this is a ticket flight for 2 persons. Then it will able to search all these different things and then adjust the label and also find the hidden data that is not directly labeled. For example, you have you park some places and you say, okay, you have to pay this one in 15 days, but there is nothing in the invoice or on the receipt that says, okay, this is due date. But generative AI can read the content and from the content understand, okay, if you are looking for the due date, based off the calculation, the time that you receive this ticket is going to be this day. And another thing in the design, I understand that you can do this one with the generative AI after you got all the information, but my point is there any plan to move it inside the document understanding? For example, this summarization or creating content, it could be included in the document understanding where you have a field. For example, you have a Jira ticket, but you want to summarize it or make it a specific format. In the design time, you say, okay, summarize it. So you don't need to pass it to generative AI, ChatGPT, whatever, and make it there. Is there any plan in this area? This is different approach from what you have right now.
Yeah, so very timely, partially because we have an event, or we have an event this week in London. London Together is one of the major events there, where we did announce some GPT capabilities coming into document understanding, right, to help with doing some of that labeling and classification to start. Long term, there is additional roadmap to bring in GPT, large language model capabilities to further improve different areas of document understanding. I don't know specifically, right, that summarization use case for sure, if that's going to be brought in directly to the product itself, but some of the other ones I know are like the labeling support. So when you're going to train your data set, there will be some pre-labeling that you can do with generative AI to help you with that and speed up the labeling experience, and then even the classification experience as well. So, you know, there's going to be more to come for sure throughout this year and beyond, right, in that area. But you're thinking exactly right. And, you know, that's something we announced as well. So definitely check out our blog. If you search on our website for our London Together post, you can find out more about that.
May I have another question? May I ask another question?
Oh.
Yep, please.
Yep.
So another capability that I'm looking forward to see it's in the chat. In the chat, you have a content that is there. From the content, you have to figure out what is the intention. Definitely, if you know the intention, the action is easy. You know what to do, the process, UiPath running this process, something like that. Yeah. But sometimes the text that's coming through, so far we had this problem that finding the intention is difficult. The one solution for that, you create a menu, say, go, which one of this you mean? But that's the old fashioned, that's the workaround. How about have this capability in the chat from the text, say, okay, this is the text. From this text, I have all this intention that I have a relative action for that. So ask ChatGPT or generative AI, okay, what is the user intention from this text? text. Then from there, when you understand the intention, the rest of it is easy. So you are not limited to certain text. For example, someone asking more flight may say, "Oh, I'm tired. I want to go somewhere." Right now, you cannot understand it in the normal chat. But if you use the chat, oh, okay, maybe the flight is a good option. So we say, "Oh, we have this flight. Which one do you want?" Okay.
So, so great, great thought. What I can say is there's more coming out from a UiPath perspective on that. We're coming out with new products. So stay tuned. Something more closer to that type of automatic understanding of the action and doing something will be coming out. So stay tuned. That's the most I can say for now.
Yeah, thank you, Dhruv. We'll have one last question from Netra. You have raised your hand. Netra, are you there?
Yes, yes, I
Yes,
am.
hi.
So yeah, my question would be to Dhruv again, and adding on to the previous queries somebody raised. So we do have some of the existing machine learning models, and we have used in our projects. But yeah, as he mentioned, labeling is a pain point there. So yeah, do we see any improvements in the labeling? And also, we actually analyze based on the confidence score that we receive out of the labeling, right? Only then we'll decide, yeah, we can proceed with this, the output which we have got. So would there be any improvements in the confidence levels that we can achieve through this generative AI integration, Dhruv?
Yeah, we'll be again releasing more along that in terms of how we're bringing generative AI into the document understanding product itself. One way that I believe was announced at London together was the labeling assistance. So that's kind of one of the early ones where you can leverage generative AI to help you with doing your document labeling, and that's going to really speed up that pain point. There's going to be more too from a document understanding perspective on where that comes in as well.
So I can add this. I just returned from Romania where I spoke to the team. Yeah, I spoke to the team in Romania. Basically, the functionality they are working on is you will have the document, the system will generate labels. So the person will be able to just update them or correct the labeling, but you will have most of the labels generated based on previous experiences, using, of course, generative AI too.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. We are on top of the hour, so we already have extended it by a bit. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Please do stay tuned for the recording and the presentation. Do share it with all your colleagues, your teammates, your friends whom you feel would find this content useful. We continuously do a lot of these activities, these sessions with our product teams and with our community at community.uipath.com. So please do visit that and look out for the session that interests you the most. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dhruv and Russell, for the amazing session. Thank you, George, Joe, for all the support. And thank you, Roxana, for setting it all up. And thank you, everyone else, for joining. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.